So in 2018, we were tasked to go out on the exploration vessel Nautilus, which is run by OET, Ocean Exploration Trust, and Dr. Bob Ballard, who discovered the Titanic, runs that outfit. So OET and Office of National Marine Sanctuaries had an agreement to use the vessel to go out, I think over a 3 or 4 year period of time and visit different sanctuaries. They also do other things too. In fact, Bob just got back over the summer, just aired on National Geographic, a big Amelia Earhart expedition. That's the same vessel we were using. So we went out in October of 2018 to go to this underwater extinct volcano called a seamount, Davidson Seamount, to look for corals and sponges in places that had not been explored yet. Kind of the apron of the mountain. This mountain's quite tall. It's almost 8,000 feet tall, so it's about driving over Donner Summit in the Sierras. 26 miles long, 8 miles wide. We've explored a lot of the top, where you get these massive long-lived corals and sponges, which is one of the reasons why this area was added to Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary in 2008, was to protect those corals. So we were charged with going out to explore the flanks of the seamount, the foothills of the seamount, if you will, for corals and sponges. And near the end of our first dive, which was about 35 hours, these remotely operated vehicles can be in the water for quite some time. They don't require any bathroom breaks or food or anything like that. And the humans up top, which were watching everything comfortably with a cup of coffee, can take these 4-hour shifts twice a day. And we stream everything live to the internet at nautiluslive.org, which is just incredible to bring in those people. But also, we have a science chat room where we have experts that can be watching live as well, and then interact with us via a private chat room to tell us maybe the identity of an animal, or hey, I would like a sample of this, or hey, can you preserve it like that? So it really broadens the amount of expertise we can bring out with us. So it's an incredible operation. It was really eye-opening. The last hour of this dive, we came across this pocket, and seeing an octopus down there is not unusual. Seeing one that's brooding, meaning taking care of its eggs, is also not unusual. But you see them just by themselves, they're solitary. We came across a pocket of about 20 brooding females, and we thought that was peculiar. And they were within this little depression at the top of this little ridge, and we decided to go investigate. And when we landed, we realized, as the camera stabilized, the water was shimmering as it was coming out of the seafloor, much like you would see air shimmer on a hot day off of the pavement. It creates that oasis shimmering effect. And we immediately thought, this is warm water, this is big news. Nothing like that has ever been discovered around here. And the fact that there were 20 octopus there, wow, they're all lined up in this pool of warm water. Clearly they chose to be here. Why is that? Questions start flying through our heads. I think this is new. We're not cephalopod experts. We don't know if this has ever been discovered before. But we're starting to fly through. People get excited. So we decide with the last 45 minutes of the dive, we'll go down slope to the east. And then we just started running into pockets of hundreds of them, well over 1,000 in the duration of the remainder of the dive. And we landed in a couple of places, and every single place where there was a big aggregation, the water was shimmering, indicating there was warm water most likely coming out. We couldn't measure it at the time. We didn't have access to a thermometer, but we were very excited. Not only that, but there was many other animals associated with these seeps too. These snails, shrimp, anemones, tube worms, all sorts of stuff. So clearly there's a community dynamic going along here too. And the questions are just piling through our heads. As it turns out, it was only the second such octopus association, brooding octopus associated with warm water ever found in the world. But the other place was only about 106 individuals. Here we had well over 1,000 that we counted within an hour. So we knew this was a big deal. Unfortunately, the ROV had some technical problems, and we thought we were coming back for a second dive right away there. We didn't end up coming back. And so it was very, very disappointing and depressing, but still very exciting that we discovered this within the last hour, because we could have easily missed it. It was pure luck running into this. So fast forward to March of this year, about 5 or 6 months after the original expedition, the BBC had a week-long television event going on called Blue Planet Live, and they were going to be broadcasting from several locations around the world, and one of them they wanted to broadcast from was this octopus garden. So they invited me along, and I physically got to get into a submarine and dive down deep. Now, this is 3,200 meters, which is more than 10,000 feet, more than 2 miles under the surface of the ocean. It took an hour and a half just to get down there, and that's going fast. And it was probably one of the most incredible experiences of my life in terms of my job and what I've been able to do. Because I've scuba dove up and down the Big Sur coast, I've traveled to a few places here and there, but to actually be in a submarine like Jacques Cousteau, 2 miles deep in the cold, dark water of the ocean, looking at these octopus moms that we had just discovered was just a transcendent kind of experience. It was absolutely magnificent. And I got to do a second dive to the top of the seamount as well, where I'd seen all these large 10-foot tall bubblegum corals for the better part of the last 15 years. But now to see them in 3 dimensions, I don't think people understand the difference between seeing them on a screen like this and then being able to look out a porthole and seeing a whole landscape, not just a screen. But then you get context, perspective, depth. You get all these things that the human eye can bring that a television monitor and a camera can't. So again, the experience I will never forget. But we were able to measure the water, and we were told it probably couldn't be warm, but indeed it was. It was almost 10 degrees Celsius, which is in the low 50s in terms of Fahrenheit, but it's near freezing down there in the ambient surrounding seawater, just about 34 degrees Fahrenheit, 1.7 degrees Celsius. So, wow, what is attracting the octopus moms there? Is it the warmth of the water? Is it something in the water? Is it the water cleans off the rock and they can cement their eggs better? So again, question after question after question starts piling up. That's usually what happens in science. Once you answer one question, it suddenly generates 10 more. It's this bifurcating tree of curiosity, I guess. So we were able to come back for one short dive in August with MBARI, Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, and we were able to collect a couple of octopus specimens and actually get them identified by some experts around the world, and they did confirm it as Musoctopus robustus, and we collected a lot of animals that live within the vents, and there's still ongoing analysis going on there, but we're looking at isotopes to determine what they feed on. We collected water for water chemistry, all sorts of amazing things. And then we had this most recent expedition last month in October of 2019 back on the Nautilus. This is the original vessel we used in 2018, and we revisited the first octopus garden, and we were able to measure more temperatures. We now have a watermark high of 10.4 degrees Celsius. So that's getting up there. That's about the almost the surface temperature of the ocean out here when you go surfing or boogie boarding. So it's getting quite warm for the deep sea. And we left a lot of loggers out that will be retrieved next year at some point, probably next fall. And this is great because every time we measure oxygen and temperature, it's just a moment in time. We know it's 10.4 right now. Well, how does that spot change over day to day, week to week, month to month, tidally, yearly, whatever? So we're able to leave loggers there that will constantly record these variables. So when we go back, we can look at how these things change over time, which will answer a lot of questions about this system. But we also collected more water for water chemistry analysis. And then we collected a few more animals as well. So I'm just really excited because we also were able to visually survey this entire feature, and so we saw quite a few more octopus. I have a feeling we're well over 2,000 now in terms of numbers. We still have to go back and count them all on video, which is going to be a fun, tedious job. But we can crowdsource it. There's been plenty of volunteers that are willing to do it. But the second dive was to continue what we wanted to do last year until we stumbled on this octopus garden, and that's look for corals and sponges. And we did find some incredible sedimentary cliffs that were more than 50 meters tall. It reminded me from scenes from an Indiana Jones movie, or the desert Southwest in the Grand Canyon. It was remarkable geology, but nothing too much in the way of corals and sponges, but a lot of interesting stuff we discovered. But then we came across a whale fall, serendipitously, just like last year we came across an octopus garden. And that was another incredible find because it's only estimated there's been about 75 whale falls ever documented that people have come across. And that includes whales that were purposefully sunk They were maybe beached whales, and they were able to take the opportunity to sink them in the ocean to then see how this environment changes, how the ecology succeeds from these scavengers that eat most of the flesh to the bone-eating worms that embed within the bone to when it becomes just a reef of bones in 5 to 10 years or whatever it may be. So this one was estimated to be several months old, only 5 meters long, so relatively short, but it was still in the middle stages of scavenging. So even though most of the flesh was gone, the internal organs are there, a lot of blubber was still there, octopus, all sorts of fishes and crustaceans were there, just consuming the remaining tissue. And then the bones were covered with this fuzzy red and yellow hair. Those were the bone-eating worms, genus Osedax, and they were only discovered in 2002 by MBARI. So we knew this was an exciting find because it's rare to come across these worms. We know they're all around the world, but what makes them come and settle on bones when these bones can be miles to dozens of miles apart? Like what, it's a very interesting process. So over the course of time there, we were able to make some collections of some of the bones there that had the worms in them, along with other animals. And again, the power of the live streaming and science chat that the Nautilus has, we were able to get in touch with the experts of bone-eating worms while we were on site. And they were able to provide expert direction on what to collect and how to preserve it. Since then, we've given them the samples. They collected them when we disembarked. And already, we've confirmed one new species of bone-eating worm. So there may be several more too. So I've already been in conversations with those scientists. They're over the moon about this. So are we. And this is kind of that power of collaboration and science and technology together. So I'm really excited to see what else may come out of this too. We've collected eDNA, water, to look at the DNA that's floating around in the water. We'll be able to identify a lot of things. And then more samples of worms and crustaceans and other things as well to understand kind of, what drives this unique thing. Because whale fall is a huge input of carbon and food to the deep sea, which most of the time relies purely on marine snow, just the particles of organic debris that rain down constantly, but it's really low amounts of food. Everything happens so slowly, metabolism happens so slowly down there, which is one of the reasons we're still interested in the octopus garden too, because this octopus, another species, has been tracked to take 54 months or 4.5 years to brood their eggs. We don't know how long this species broods, but for example, a giant Pacific octopus up in shallow waters only takes 3 months to brood. So we know it definitely takes longer, and maybe living in the warm water speeds up that development. We don't know, but these are some of the questions we're going to try and answer. And then in the last hour of this second dive after the whale fall, I wanted to go up this volcanic cone, this little bump on the seafloor. And in previous cones we had not found any venting water, but I just kind of theorized that this is what they call a low temperature ridge flank hydrothermal system. That's a mouthful, but essentially warm water, ocean water is going through rocky outcrops, maybe the seamount itself, traveling underneath all of the sediment that's been piling up over the millennia and millions of years, slightly getting warmed by the Earth's crust, and then coming out in weak points. It's like a pressure differential. So it squeezes out these little broken areas of rock. So the idea is look for broken areas of rock, anything that's volcanic or crackly, kind of thing. That's a very scientific term. And sure enough, we came across this second volcanic cone, and near the summit, we found some venting water. Peculiarly, we did not find any octopus associated with this first vent, but I had a feeling we would eventually find them. And then, as we neared the summit, we started seeing lines and lines and lines of these octopus. It was just absolutely incredible. So in the last 45 minutes or so of the dive, after the whale fall, we came up the cone and we found this area of venting water, but it was interesting, we didn't find any octopus associated with it, but it was shimmering. We measured it, it was up to 5 degrees Celsius. We collected some water, but I instructed the pilots, let's just keep going. I know there's going to be octopus here if there's venting water, and sure enough, near the summit, we found these lines of octopus by the hundreds, just like a network of veins and arteries, all associated with this venting water coming out of this cone. And we didn't measure anymore, but we confirmed presence of eggs in most of these places, and just really tried to go as fast as we could to visually survey as much as we could, because we did have to pull the ROV because of impending weather. Big swell was coming along the coast. But regardless, even though we saw only the tip of the iceberg, or the tip of the cone, literally, of this place, we really want to come back here, and that's one of the plans for next year. But overall, it's been an incredible experience being a part of 3 Nautilus dives, discovering 2 octopus gardens, a whale fall, going out with the BBC and diving in the Alvin. I mean, these are things I could not have even dreamt of just a year and a half ago. And that's how quickly things happen. I think that's the power of exploration, and why exploration still needs to occur. I think a lot of people assume, oh, there's been plenty of deep sea research and all that. No. Less than 5% of the seafloor has been accurately mapped, and less than 1% has been surveyed to any extent. Think about it. We're on the slopes of this mountain, which is much larger than, a small state, basically, like Rhode Island. And it's the equivalent of what we're doing is being dropped out of a helicopter with like a big headlight, or maybe in a small car, and we're just driving along and we're trying to describe the entire area based on, a couple dozen hours of driving very slowly, about 3 miles an hour, through a park or through a street or a neighborhood or whatever. So I think people have to realize we're seeing such a small bit of the seafloor every time we explore. It's important information, but because we're exploring such a fraction of a percent, this is the kind of stuff that you come across occasionally, and this is why exploration is so important. Experts were telling me there can't be warm water coming out of here. We know this area. And sure enough, it's warm. No one had any idea that octopus were here in these numbers associated with them. No one knew of this whale fall here. Now, we know they exist, but you don't know where they are. So all of these are very serendipitous events, but again, highlight the importance of exploration and why we need to continue to do so.